Good afternoon and welcome to another Kerfuffle showcase. I am delighted, honoured to have Mr. Jez from Agent OS, formerly Let MC, on the show again. How are you, my friends?
All good, thanks. Nice to be here again. Twice in the space of a week.
You downplayed that a little bit, if you don't mind me saying so. You normally
don't get ahead of yourself.
You're just building up into getting the momentum going and going from there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, good. Luckily, you've got last time you had a strangely orange Donald Trump tone, so you've sorted out your lighting today, have you?
Yeah, without too much of a shiny forehead, although, yeah.
Good stuff, mate. Well, look, today was really, we wanted to have a catch up with you and look at where you are in terms of the year. Obviously, what you've been as we wind up and move towards December. It's always quite a healthy thing, I think, to look back and see how much we've achieved. In your mind, what are these things you've brought to the table? Because clearly you've been extremely busy bees.
Yeah, it's been well, it's been the same for everyone, hasn't it? It's been a crazy year, and I suppose we at the end of last year we'd had some grand plans about the things we were going to do. We'd had a consultant in. Do you remember Glenn Daly? Who did a lot of stuff with Peter, and I think he was involved at EA Masters again this year. And Glenn came into the business to have a chat with us about how we were going to move it forward. And to give us these sort of basic scorecard measures for if you remember that much about the
scorecards in terms of
so business scorecards and the best, looking at the best ways of driving the business forward in the way that you want to. And it was a really, really brilliant exercise, and gave us lots of ideas about all the things we were going to do this year. And then of course COVID happened, and it kind of changed our plans. But what it did do is give us a foundation to everything that we wanted to achieve.
You didn't have a pandemic factored into your what ifs and maybes.
No. Strangely enough, we didn't. Although the pandemic plan suddenly happened very, very quickly. But the nice thing is, in a weird way, it sort of meant that we had the time and capacity to focus on the parts of the development we wanted to make that perhaps we had decided to put further back in the year. So one big part of that was a pretty significant culture change, and we implemented a piece of software called Client Success Box, which isn't necessarily a widely known tool, but for software as a service businesses, the client success model of support has been around for a while, but it's not something that we'd adopted in any significant fashion before the end of last year. But we realized it was something we had to do, and the concept being that culturally moving away from a support function as a reactive part of the business and moving everything onto a proactive success model. But in order to be able to do that and do it properly, you have to have some way of knowing what your users are doing. And it's bonkers that we have all these users sitting inside the system. They have unique identifications. We know exactly who's in the system, but we couldn't tell what they were doing and how they were using the software. So putting this piece of software behind the system has just fundamentally changed how we work, and it's changing the culture of how we provide support and move things forward. So it really
just because on that point, is that then because it stops you managing by kind of gut feel? You're actually back managing them on real empirical evidence.
Yeah,
literally, we might have a perception that X, Y, Z part of the system is really, really popular, and actually your clients aren't getting to it for whatever reason and using it in earnest.
Absolutely right. So it sounds a bit stalky, but it genuinely is, and it's not a question of us wanting to know exactly what everybody's doing, but it gives us an understanding of how the system is being used, whether it's being used in the right way or as we designed it, whether it looks a bit like people are fighting against how the system's been designed, which obviously then raises questions around development and improvements. But most importantly, identify the areas of the system people just weren't using, and we wave a finger in the air. People use 50% of a software system. It's been fundamental in how we've moved things forward since really the beginning of the year. So that's been been very interesting. The net effect of that sort of to where we are now is we're seeing vast improvements in engagement from the client base in parts of the software perhaps they hadn't been traditionally using. And it wasn't they didn't want to use it; it was that they perhaps didn't know how, or they didn't understand. And this success model has just meant that we're able to focus in on the specific parts of the system that they needed help with. The best example of that is we introduced our open banking connections at the beginning of the year, which has been brilliant. And we've got 70 new clients using the open banking connections.
So just so I understand, this is a kind of like a bit of software, a bit like PayPop or Let's Pay or something like that. But
no. So obviously we have Agent Pay, which is the app, similar to those guys in terms of outsourced accounting services. But open banking fundamentally underpins it and makes it different from our perspective. So the original purpose for building the open banking connections was to get away from, or to allow our clients to get away from having to manually enter client accounting transactions into a system, or as most of us were doing, downloading a bank statement and uploading a bank statement into the software and then reconciling it. What the open banking connection does is allows you to plug the account directly into the software. So you don't have to go logging into your
no reading of information.
Yeah, you don't have to download anything. It's just there. Right. So you log in, and that then is extending into some of the work that we're doing. Well, we've started doing, but it'll be appearing next year. But what that did then was give us the ability to plug that same functionality into the Agent Pay service. So of the big things we've achieved this year, obviously Agent Pay is one of those. That being the new service, doing that full accounts reconciliation, payment services, and the crucial part of that is you don't have to be an Agent OS customer in order to use the Agent Pay service. And the point of difference initially was really about the fact that through open banking you were able to plug your own bank account directly into the app and start using it to automate your reconciliation and payment processes. So that was something that really got accelerated as a result of lockdown coming about. We had to focus on something. We had to really look at what things can we do to try and help, firstly and honestly, our client base, but then secondly, looking wider and saying, right, what opportunities are there out there? And that seemed like an obvious one.
So, I mean, it seems to me you've made a bit of a sort of shift. I don't know whether it was a deliberate mindset as well. We were talking on another show actually about how the days of any of these systems, ERP systems, CRM, what you want to call them, there really was a drive going back only 5 years ago, 10 years ago, that, there was going to be one kind of system to rule them all. Everyone was going to absorb the functionality in one master package, and actually, you were one of the first to look at integration with third-party systems, but it seems like that's now a fundamental part. Actually, you're launching different almost product lines that don't, that are available for other clients. Is that deliberate, just to open yourselves up to a wider audience?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd be lying if I said it was the plan originally. It wasn't. So much had made us refocus our attentions on what we were doing as a result of lockdown. And had we wanted to build everything into the CRM and have one package that does everything, the holy grail of software, sure. That I think a lot of us talked about for a long time, but we'd already started on a journey of being very open with data, with connectivity. But it suddenly dawned on us that actually building these role-specific apps is an opportunity, yes, but also it's a benefit. Again, coming back to this idea of our success model of providing support services now, what's in the best interest of supporting not just our clients and therefore the owners of those businesses and what they deem to be success, but what helps the individual user be successful in their role. And that being, if we go back to everything we do in terms of new development and whether that be in the app environment or whether that's in the core system, it's about asking that question first. How is this helpful? What does this do? What does it achieve if we do this thing? And whilst at the same time looking at what exists and asking the same question: is what was there still relevant? Is it still useful? And it just completely changed our outlook on what we do. And yeah, had we intended on going out and having 4 or 5 more product lines that can go to the open market? No, we hadn't intended on that. But looking forward into next year, we will have at least 2 on top of the CRM, which is it a burden? Do we want to go and hit the market with other products as well? I don't know. It's probably going to be my job to deal with that. But it's exciting it's almost been a byproduct of the work that we've done, and a change in culture and approach to how we develop the software. So it's been really interesting. Really interesting.
I'll play you a recording back of this time next year, just to remind you if it's all gone to plan.
Mate, if we're able to do that sitting around a table at a bar, I'll be happier. But a recording will do.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter how successful it is then, does it? And anyway, I'm a bit disappointed with you there, saying it wasn't part of the master plan. I thought my Yoda teachings had taught you better. Claim everything. It was all part of the vision from day one. I've got to say, Jay,
expenses aren't a thing at the moment, so.
Well, you say that. Then if I could show you the amount of Apple merchandise sat next to me, you'd disagree. I've got to just say, talking about, and I think just going back to your previous original point as well about that customer success box, which allows you to, plot obviously what your users are actually doing. This is nothing other than just a brief aside. I wanted to, I obviously have to have a bluffer's guide for everything. So I was having a look at their website. This was their slogan to kick it off, which I thought was fantastic. Get to 130% plus MRR retention. This is the killer line. Customer Success Boss is an AI-powered customer success software to onboard, retain, upsell, and drive MRR growth for B2B SaaS.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Snappy. Written by developers, that one.
I think it was. I've seen a few press releases for new starters in this industry come up with stuff like that recently. I think it's really interesting. I think that's fascinating, though. And of course, I mentioned the Apple Gear. The first thing you do when you sign on to that is give anonymized data back to enable, the biggest company in the world, understand how their apps and things are being used, aren't they?
Yeah, and it's weird because it's not been something that we've not been doing anyway. We've been mildly aware of the fact that we've got a ton of people using the system, and we had but this is the point, we had a rough idea of what they were doing, and we had to make a very time-consuming effort to find out what could be done and what could be changed. And now what we've got is a system that delivers that information to us. Every day we're seeing what's going on with the client base, with gradings of those clients, so we know exactly what we've got to do in order to improve the service to the client base, and most importantly, start delivering new products into the client base that service the needs that they've got that perhaps we don't currently provide. And it goes hand in hand with something else we implemented actually more middle of last year, but it's really been pushing on this year is Canny, which you may or may not have come across. But Canny is a reporting tool. It allows our clients to make software requests, development ideas. But the point is with that is that's an open platform, so everybody is using the same thing. Nothing is deleted, so it means the client base as a whole are able to get in and make suggestions and then start voting for what they want to have done. So it becomes a voting platform. And so doing that alongside the client success box is really giving us data that tells us what we need to do, rather than us guessing or commercially making decisions that perhaps don't have the best interests at heart of the client base.
So if I'm to understand that element there, is that a bit like, I know there's a few websites that do it, and most of them seem to be powered by things like Salesforce, where, different kind of development ideas. I mean, it can be anything, can't it? And then you can upvote as a user based on the selection there.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's fantastic.
So, I mean, it's gamified. Go on.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, it's that horrible, wanky phrase. It democratizes your client base's ability, though, doesn't it? Really does. You can still, if you like, shortlist those enhancements to make sure you're going forwards on the right plan. But ultimately, then giving that control back, nobody's got unlimited resource or anything like that. So you have to take some decisions, and it makes perfect sense to listen to your audience in terms of which ones are priorities, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and it I suppose it demonstrates the interaction that we're prepared to have with the client base over those things, because there are plenty of debates that go on there. There are plenty of people who are disappointed that their incredible idea is something that we just can't or won't implement. But where things are voted up in a big way, and the first thing that went in there was actually open banking connections. That was the first thing that got masses and masses of votes. We commit to doing that work.
Are you telling me you boycotted, downvoted David Mintz's RedTube integration then?
Yeah, apparently we didn't have enough bandwidth for it.
Yeah, so that's a classic one. This is a moment, Jez, just for you to sit back, have a cup of have a sip of your tea. This is the point, obviously, on a pink show like ours, where we throw digital rose petals at you, taken from the reviews off your very own landing page on there. This is James Christopher from Shorelets Limited. Brilliant support staff, always helpful, on hand, and knowledgeable. And then, the fantastic team, so helpful and supportive, Mr. Wolfenden from Leaderbox. So you can't get in and tell me what his browsing history is, though. No, that's not.
I probably could, but there's some dark arts to everything. Isn't it?
Okay, cool. Keep hitting me. Obviously, this is great. I mean, this is what everyone wants, isn't it? At a time when a lot of the CRM companies and indeed a lot of prop tech companies are being accused of a lack of innovation and everything else, you've got a very aggressive development roadmap. But actually, there's some consistency and strategy to it. It's not like you kind of said, we're going to do open banking or we're going to do this MI tool. There, it's all leading towards a common goal, isn't it?
Yeah, and what's isn't, we have to make commercial decisions on what we do. It's about working out what our clients need most. We in the past we've had to make best guesses. Now at least we're armed with a lot of data around that as well. So that's why we're seeing the changes that we've made over the last year. The negotiator app. So talking about apps again. Yeah. That's in the client base now. It's very much in beta, but we've got it to that minimal viable product stage, and then we release. And we allow people to play. There's no cost associated with it. We want people to use it, feedback exactly what their experience is, and then we'll start tinkering with those suggestions and make improvements. I think you had Christian on last week and talking about a very similar approach: is get something out there that is relevant, that is useful, but then start listening to the feedback that comes back about that and start making changes. So we've got tons of things scheduled for that. But the purpose of that negotiator app is to have everything a negotiator needs in the palm of their hand. Connected to the CRM, obviously, but trying to bring the CRM onto a phone-sized device just isn't feasible. It's there's just too much information to display. So we've had to build it specifically for the role. But that's out there at the moment for messaging, for diary purposes, for existing listings. But it's going to be, in fact, you can actually do a tenancy application on it now, I'm pretty sure. But then beyond that, we can take that further. So we've got planned there to start bringing all your live leads directly into that system. So if you're, let's say you're using Rightmove and a lead gets delivered to you via Rightmove, that's going to ping on your phone. It's going to be in your app. So you could deal with it there and then. You're going to get a notification to let you know one's existed. It's happened in the CRM as well. If it doesn't suit your business model, that's fine. You just keep dealing with it centrally. But if you're out and about all the time, then you've got that in your hand. And then prospecting is the big one that it's going to see a lot of work done to it over the coming year, but the idea of having an app in your pocket that's got local mapping, that's got opportunities in and around you from competitor data, that's not data taken from our system. That's looking at portal land data, and delivering that into the same app means that you've got everything from a negs point of view in the palm of your hand, and that's out there. That's, as I say, that's being used, but we've got to still do more work to it. And then that moves into other things that we've been doing right now, which is we've got wireframed and owners app. So same concept. Yeah. What does the owner need in the palm of their hand, and having a look at that. And so that's going to be not just. So we talked about leads and bring leads into the negs app, but if you were able to start seeing funnels, likely conversion rates, based on the lead information that's coming in at the top of the funnel, and then looking at conversion rates and starting to be able to forecast inside an app just get an idea of exactly what it is that's going on inside your business, what's going to go on inside your business in the future. Obviously, KPI management within that as well as part of that app, and financial performance. So it starts to put it all in one place.
I think it's fantastic to, one of the frustrations, you famously, you were the first, or either the first or, one of the early adopters of true cloud software. But one of the lazy elements that happened with all providers that started to go down that route was when they did talk about it being mobile, but what it really meant was you were just shrinking the screen down, weren't you, like that? And actually, that point about needing to display a lot of information, or indeed input a lot of information, simply didn't work or wasn't optimized in the right way on your iPad or on your phone. What's brilliant about that Neg app is you've thought about it, thought what they actually need to do, thought about the form factor, the size and everything else, and literally built a product to work on that basis. And I think that's a really interesting and just totally logical way of doing things these days.
Yeah, I've mentioned this before speaking to you, but we use an Amazon Web Services environment for everything. So everything lives and breathes in Amazon. And they have a platform called Amplify, which we use for this development. And we're proving concept at the moment, really, by building these apps for ourselves. We have a full-time app developer who's doing this work for us. And it's been really interesting because the speed at which we can turn around apps that are usable, so connected to the core data and actually have something meaningful behind them, is a matter of weeks. I mean, it's quite incredible, the stuff that the guys have been doing. And it throws up that possibility of, what if a third party wanted to build something?
Yeah.
What if somebody else wanted to build something? The Amplify platform is essentially free to use until you want to start storing data. So it opens up the possibility. It's very much concept at the moment, but the possibility that people could be building their own things that's directly connected to the software, delivered as apps. I don't know. We've got, I think, 4 apps now built into the CRM. So we've got this brand new user interface and UX work that's been going on, which is I'm reliably informed it's going to be the 30th of November now. So that will be, you heard it here first, until it gets put back by a week again. It's going to be really interesting because it's a complete overhaul. So the whole UI changes, definitely for the better. Very much more focused on reducing clicks, dashboard led for everything. But a big part of that is that there is an apps dashboard now that sits inside the new UI. And whilst the only apps that sit there currently will be the 4 apps that we're providing, it becomes the environment that we'll start pushing third-party development towards, so that you're able to actually build things into the system. So currently it sits as QR codes. So you sit in front of your desktop screen, scan the phone, and there you go. There you are. There's your app. Log in and you're away. And undoubtedly we'll do a lot more development on that as time goes. But that currently is the Neg app, owner's app wireframe, which isn't live now, but will be made live as soon as there's something worth seeing there. The accounts app, which is a very basic version of Agent Pay, and Agent Pay itself sits there. Then going beyond that, we're looking at Agent Watch, which is more of a big data prospecting piece. So there's a lot of work going on that at the moment as well. So that's quite exciting too. But everything, again, it's all connected to the system. It's all connected to the core CRM. But it becomes an environment for our clients to use it from the CRM. And then, of course, we'll have something separate for those people who aren't core software clients but want to use the apps that we're producing.
I think it's fantastic to have that. For some time now, I've been thinking that those CRM companies that literally integrate closely the prospecting, style data that are going to be leaps and bounds ahead of the competition. Really, anything that provides a bit of a delay, an extra login or something like that, means that it doesn't happen as much. So to have that prospecting data layered into your own CRM system is really good. And the way you've shown me that in the past, in terms of how that does blend together, is again really, really impressive on that. Yes, thank you once more. Cheers.
Thanks, mate.